Hi. So I don't know if this is going to make it onto YouTube or the internet or anything like that. I think this is probably just going to be more of a video for uh, documentation, honestly, just for myself. But I don't know. I might change my mind. Still kind of up in the air on it because it is a little bit more of a private, personal subject. But I also am wrestling with the idea of maybe it could be beneficial for somebody else to kind of hear about my experience with this. So that's why we're making the video. But I'm just under 3 weeks out from getting what's called colorectal surgery, basically where they go in and they take out your colon, your large intestine, and then give you a ileostomy bag, which is basically just a bag that sits on the front of your stomach. Then they reroute your small intestine through that bag, and that's how you go to the bathroom. And the reason I'm getting that surgery is because I have what's called ulcerative colitis, or UC for short. It's very similar to like Crohn's disease. Basically, your immune system sees your colon as a threat and starts attacking it, becomes super inflamed and diseased, essentially. And I am kind of out of options for treating it as far as like medication and things like that go. So the next best thing is just to do surgery, get it out. It cures it, essentially. It's because we're taking the whole problem just out of my body. It's a little bit daunting because it's kind of a big surgery. The colon is kind of a big organ, and so I'm a little nervous about it. But I think I'm mostly excited. Little history on this, without getting too detailed or whatever. I've been dealing with this for about 4 years. I got diagnosed in 2021 with ulcerative colitis, and for the first couple years, it was fairly mild. I could generally live a like 99% of a normal life, essentially. And once I hit about 2023, it kind of started picking up, getting worse. And I eventually got to the point where I basically couldn't leave the house, just kind of chained to my home. And that's how I spent most of 2024, was just sitting at home or sitting at the camera store part-time that I was working at. But I really couldn't do much more than that. I didn't feel good, lost a bunch of weight. I dropped down at one point to about 135 pounds. I've since gained some of that back, or all of that, and then some back, actually. So I'm actually back at like a normal, healthy weight now, which is nice, feels good. But that's not because any kind of meds are working, other than some really, really heavy steroids. And those aren't a long-term solution. You can't really be on steroids for long-term because that's bad for you. Once I got into about 2023, the end of 2023, started throwing a bunch of different medications at it, seeing a bunch of doctors and things, and nothing was helping. I was using a lot of the medications that you see, like on TV and stuff that's advertised by the big pharmaceutical companies like Humira and Stelara and a lot of those kinds of meds, and nothing was even touching it. I went through 3 or 4 different medications, and it literally had no effect. It just continued to get worse and worse throughout the year. And so the best solution, unfortunately, is to have that surgery and just take everything out. Just remove the problem entirely. Luckily, that is a organ that you can live without. It definitely changes the way you live life, though, which is a little daunting. It'll take some getting used to. And I'm really curious to see what that process is like. Luckily, the recovery time, from what I've been able to tell, is not, or from what I've heard, is not horribly intense. There's a few days in the hospital right afterwards, and then 2 or 3 weeks of just resting, not doing anything, and then up to about 6 weeks of lifting restrictions and things like that. So it's really not horrible. Luckily, they do it all laparoscopically. And so it's not, it's intense, but it's not at the same time. So I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm mainly excited to be on the other end of this thing. So, I've been dealing with this for, like I said, about 4 years now, and it's been a very, very long, frustrating, annoying, obnoxious, and maddening process. Like I said, I've been essentially chained to my house for the better part of almost a year and a half now, and I haven't really been able to go out and do any kind of like photography or anything, any traveling. I did make one attempt back in October of 2024 to go down to southern Utah. I was shooting a wedding down there, and then I was going to go do some camping for a couple days, and take some photos and do a whole bunch of stuff. But I got down there, shot the wedding, and then I immediately was horribly sick and had to come home. And so that's the only attempt really I made at doing any kind of photo stuff, which is super frustrating because I love photography. Obviously, if you can tell by any of the videos on my channel, or if you follow anything that I do on Instagram, it's what I love, and it's been really annoying to not be able to do it. And it's always been frustrating because I really haven't been able to work. Like I said, I've kind of had this part-time job at a camera store, and that's been able to kind of help get me through, mainly because it's a very slow, relaxed kind of job. And so there's a lot of leniency on, what I'm able to do and stuff. And that's been super helpful, been great. But that's really the extent of what I've been able to do. I really haven't been able to do much freelance work. I haven't felt comfortable even trying to promote any of that kind of stuff because I'm in a position where I can't really trust my body, which is, this is super annoying. And it's really, really frustrating to feel that way. I'm very, very excited to be able to get back to just having a sense of normalcy. Luckily, the having the ileostomy bag is a little, that's going to take some getting used to say the least. But everything that I've heard, read, seen, in my research on this stuff, or even talking to doctors and whatnot, a lot of people have a really good experience with the bag. It seems like a lot of people are able to live a fully normal life while having that. Even people who are athletes and things, and I'm no athlete, doing hiking or backpacking or photography is pretty low impact most of the time. So I'm not really worried about, having any issues with that or it being any kind of an obstruction on my life. If anything, it'll just be nothing but a positive, which is a little weird to say because, I've always kind of viewed that as the worst case scenario, but my mindset has kind of shifted to thinking that no, the situation that I'm in right now is worst case scenario, where I can't do anything. I can't leave my house. I can't live a life. Makes things really, really hard, especially when it comes to like family stuff and, so many other, personal things and whatnot. But I am very, very excited to be back to doing normal things. I'm very curious and excited to see what I'm like as a photographer on the other side of this, because I essentially haven't really done much shooting at all the last year, but I've been doing a lot of like studying and, practicing around the house and stuff, and really learning about a lot of different aspects of photography and stuff. And, working a part-time job at a camera store for the last year has helped a lot with, learning other things that I probably wouldn't have learned before. And, there's a lot of things that I've gotten into. I've gotten really heavily into like film photography and stuff, but I haven't really been able to practice it as much as I would like. And, so I have, I've acquired all these like cameras, for example, probably like 6 or 7 cameras over the last year. And, most of them are film cameras, a couple of little digital ones, but I've just been kind of sitting on them. I haven't really been able to use them. And I'm really excited to be able to get out and use a lot of the stuff that I've been getting into and kind of practicing that and putting a lot of this stuff that I've been learning to the test. So I don't want this to come across as like a poor me kind of thing, because it's really not. I mean, it's a pretty serious situation. And, if I don't get the surgery now, I'm potentially just gonna have to get it later. And then there's other complications that potentially arise with that, later down the road, like getting cancer and a lot of things like that. So a lot of ways this is preventative for things that probably will happen down the road anyways. So it's really more of a good thing than a bad thing. It's, it sucks that it had to come to this and that other things didn't work, but at least there's an end point to it. I never thought that I would be at this point in my life where I would have to have something like this done. I've always been totally healthy, never had any issues, never had any kind of surgeries before, never even broken a bone. Like I've always been super healthy. And so that's a little new to me, to dealing with, health issues. Like I mentioned, definitely not like a poor me thing. So I don't want, if I do any talking about this more in the future, it's definitely not coming from a poor me kind of standpoint. It's, any kind of discussion I'll do on this in the future, which I don't want to like get into too much detail on it. Maybe I will. I don't know if people are curious about that, but I would rather it come across as more educational almost. In my own research on this kind of a surgery and, this kind of condition and stuff, there's not like a ton of information or content that's out there kind of based around it. There's a few really good sources that I found that have helped me a ton, kind of get to know what's going on, and so I don't know. I feel like the more of that, the better. Not that I'm like trying to be some advocate for ulcerative colitis or something like that, but I think that the more people talk about it, I think the better. So, because I had never heard of it before getting it, and when I talked to people about it, most people never heard of it. So I know a lot of people know what Crohn's is, but most people haven't really heard of UC. But like I said, I think the main reason I'm making this video is just for self-documentation. That way, in 2, 3, 5 years, I can come back and kind of get an idea of what I was thinking, what I was going through, and feeling about this whole thing. But there is part of me that's hoping that maybe this video can help somebody else. I feel like I have a little bit of an obligation, maybe by going through this experience, and not that I have like some huge platform or anything like that, but I have somewhat of a platform on the internet, no matter how small it might be, that maybe somebody will see this video and it'll help them to not feel so lonely through this whole process, because that is what it is. It's a tough experience to go through, and varying outcomes, so many different things that can happen with it and stuff. And like with me, I know I've heard of some people who have great experiences with medications, and then I've heard of people who do not, and I'm unfortunately one of those people. So I'm hoping that just by sharing the whole experience of going through the surgery and everything like that, that can be beneficial to somebody. And if that can help even one person, then that's a win for me. I've always thought it would be really cool to be able to, I don't know, be somebody that can help people like that, or help people through, certain situations like that. That's always been something that I've kind of strived for in life, is to be, somebody who can help others. I find a lot of just personal joy in that, I guess. But I will say that while, this is a pretty big surgery and I'm pretty nervous about it, it's a little bit daunting, I am mostly very excited just to put all this behind me and be able to move on with my life. Realistically, I just kind of have to come to the terms with the fact that it's never going to get back to normal. Unfortunately, that's just reality of the situation. And reality is, this may have always had to have happened anyways. No matter how much work I put into trying to heal this, earlier in the process and whatnot, I think it may have always ended up coming to this at some point, eventually anyways. And that's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. I would rather do it now while I'm healthy than have, it be some emergency situation years down the road, and then also spend all these years of just still waiting around, waiting for medications to work. I'd rather just do it now, and just move on with life. Like I said, I'm still really trying to process how I feel about this thing, and I will probably spend the next 3 weeks doing a lot of thinking and processing about it. So, which I will probably talk about later, and will probably be in later in this video, because I think I'm going to make it all one part or one whole thing. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm not even sure if this is going to go on the internet, so we'll see. But anyways, I'm done yapping. So we'll see you in 3 weeks.